Coming up, see how local bookstores are taking a stand against increasing book bans. And find out how the Boston Public Library provides access to books across the country. Hello, my name is Gabriella Celona, and welcome to this WEBJ special Forbidden Chapters, where we take a look at the impact that book challenges have on the Boston community and how the community is fighting back. In 2022, there were 45 attempts made to restrict access to books here in Massachusetts. That's more than the last 9 years combined. And it wasn't just here. Challenges were up across the country with more than 300 individual books challenged in Pennsylvania and Michigan, just under 1,000 in Florida, and 2,300 in Texas. Nicolette Bentz spoke with students from Florida to learn about how they're all impacted by these challenges.
Many students have the chance to interact with controversial books in the place they spend most of their time, school. But this isn't the case for thousands of students in Florida. Hamila Marcus, the executive director of Electric Literature, directly works with Banned Books USA, a nonprofit operated under Electric Literature that sends banned books to homes in Florida. Marcus explained the work the organization does for students.
The idea is getting banned books in the hands of the people who are most affected by these book bans, which is currently residents of Florida.
Jordan Brady, a junior at Boston University and a Florida native, talked about her experience growing up in Florida schools and with banned books.
Sad that we don't learn about history in the same way we used to just because it's not politically correct today. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't still be learning about it even because it happened.
In addition to differences in classroom learning, Seb Olivo, a student living in Boston from Florida, agreed with Brady that their schools didn't really touch on banned books at all.
I know as soon as I went to a private institution, what was being taught was a lot more about the atrocities that were committed in U.S. history.
University of Florida librarian April Hines talked about solutions that she hopes to see in Florida college students in the future.
We need to be having more of these types of conversations or events or forums because the content that's coming out in the news, it's not trickling down to the student.
To see a complete list of banned titles and where they are available in Boston, either virtually or in person, visit bpl.com. For WEBJ News, I'm Nicolette Bentz.
Thank you, Nicolette. Here in Boston, there's been a pushback to book bans. Our reporter, Sommer Stokes, is live with us. Sommer, you spoke with Trident Bookstore about highlighting authors of color and LGBTQ+ authors.
That's right, Gabriella. As the number of banned and challenged books continues to rise, local booksellers have taken it upon themselves to combat this issue head-on. According to the American Library Association, 1,915 unique titles were challenged in the first 8 months of 2023. Trident Booksellers General Manager Jeffrey Raywood says the best way to fight these challenges is through continued visibility.
We do celebrate Banned Book Week along with many independent bookstores around the country, making sure that we have those books, every day of the year, every week of the year.
Books by authors of color and LGBTQ+ authors are the primary targets of book bans, and stores like Trident Booksellers do their best to advocate for minority stories and voices.
We do regular rotations of displays to feature, folks from all across authordom. Any bookstore should be a place where anybody can go and find a story that's, just right for them.
Booksellers are not the only ones standing against book censorship. Authors like Ray Furman are using their words to make a statement.
Some of the most important work that we can do as writers is to translate our experience and really immerse our readers in a way that cultivates empathy.
Banned Book Week is October 1st through the 7th. For a list of participating booksellers, visit bannedbookweeks.org. Sommer Stokes, WEBJ News.
The first book ever banned in the United States was the New English Canon in Quincy, Massachusetts. Here's Drake Skelly to take us on a journey through the history of book bans.
Thanks, Gabriella, and that's right. The New English Canon was banned all the way back in 1637. Its author, Thomas Morton, criticized the strict society of the Puritans and their treatment of the indigenous people. Needless to say, the government wasn't happy with this portrayal of their society and banned the book in their colony. But book bans go back much further. The very first emperor of China in the 200s BC is known for the phrase, "He burned the books and buried the Confucian scholars alive." That second half may have never happened, but scholars are certain that the emperor gathered documents, songs, and historical accounts of conquered states to be burned. So why are books banned? The Free Speech Center at Middle Tennessee State University outlined that, quote, "Those advocating a ban complain typically that the book in question contains graphic violence, expresses disrespect for parents and family, is sexually explicit, exalts evil, lacks literary merit, is unsuitable for a particular age group, or includes offensive language." The problem is all of those qualifications to get a book banned are objective. A book that lacks literary merit for one reader may be another's favorite book. Now, let's go through a couple of famous banned or challenged books. The most banned book in America's history is George Orwell's 1984. It's actually ironic that it's so often challenged because the book is about the dangers of censorship. The book was challenged both for allegedly being pro-communist and for its sexually explicit content. We're going to find that a lot of books are challenged on the basis of being sexually explicit. Some argue that children shouldn't be exposed to sexual content without the approval of parents. Now to a surprising challenge for a book most would consider for children, Charlotte's Web. Yes, that Charlotte's Web about a little pig named Wilbur and his friend Charlotte the Spider. A parents group in Kansas wanted to remove the book because they took issue with Charlotte dying at the end of the story and believed that talking animals were, quote, unnatural and blasphemous, as humans are the highest level of God's creations. Religion is another dominating factor in book challenges, including our next title, Harry Potter. The massively successful book and movie franchise received backlash when the first book of the series was released. It was the 48th most challenged book of the 90s and the most of the early 2000s. People took issue with the witchcraft featured in the series and believed that it glorifies the occult and would incite rebellion in its readers. Some modern-day challenges exist on the basis of race, many believing that readers, primarily children, shouldn't be exposed to America's complex history and relationship with race. However, this idea isn't all that modern, as it's one of the reasons people are opposed to the book To Kill a Mockingbird. The Pulitzer Prize winner is often celebrated and criticized for its portrayal of racism in the American South during the early 1900s. However, some teachers and students have become critical of the book more recently due to the repeated use of the N-word and the belief that it is a white savior story that doesn't properly represent black people. The Catcher in the Rye is now a staple in high school literature classes, but it had to fight to get there. There were claims of the book being blasphemous and vulgar. What's interesting is that that's what the author was going for. The book follows the perspective of a teenage boy who was proudly vulgar. The book also features sexual content, which we already know makes it a target for banning. Despite the offensive content, many teachers still value the book as a learning tool as they teach teenagers. Their students are confronting the world in the same way as the main character. All of these books have become fixtures in the lives of children in America, but that wasn't always the case. That's all I have for this collection of banned books. Back to you, Gabriella.
Genderqueer, a Memoir, was the most challenged book in 2022 in Massachusetts and in 15 other states. Stories depicting the lives of the members of the LGBTQ+ community are often challenged with an argument that children shouldn't be exposed to discussions of sexuality. Mackenzie Bruno went to the I Am Books in the North End to see how the bookstore is putting these stories back on the shelves.
Every neighborhood needs a bookstore. That's the motto of I Am Books in Boston's North End. Founded in 2015, founder Nicola Orchua says they are the only bookstore in this Italian-American neighborhood. They want to give the community access to all books, even those being challenged.
As bookstores, as sort of portals to knowledge, we make sure that there is access, there is a viable way for these authors and for their books and their themes to be out there in the world.
As an independent bookseller, I Am Books has the freedom to sell any books they want, with careful guidance from a booksellers association. During the 2022-2023 school year in the United States, The Guardian reports that book bannings increased by 28% in just 6 months. The books most commonly challenged represent topics in the LGBTQ+ and BIPOC communities. Right around the corner at the North End Public Library, Generalist Librarian Casey Abbott is amplifying the voices of BI+ authors by hosting an event called Book by Book. The group event is geared towards members of the BI+ community. Each month, the group reads and discusses books by BI+ authors that also feature BI+ characters.
I'm just trying to find as many bi authors as I can, and if it's not a bi author, but they write about bi characters, it's kind of like, okay, as a non-bi person, like, how do they do representing a bi character? Like, is it different than when a bi author writes about a bi character?
Now we turn our attention to the Boston Public Library, which joined an initiative granting access to censored books across the country. Hannah Rose has more.
That's right, Gabriella. The Boston Public Library is the third library in the United States to join the Books Unbanned initiative following Seattle and Brooklyn. The library provides free e-cards to teens and young adults. The library provides free e-cards to teens and young adults to a collection of banned or challenged books online.
We believe really strongly in the principles of intellectual freedom and freedom to read and making sure that we are providing uncensored materials.
The initiative receives private support from the BPL Fund.
It is a separate collection. It's being supported by philanthropy, and I think we're very fortunate to be in that position.
However, some believe that certain topics relating to race, religion, or sexuality are inappropriate for a young audience.
When it comes to children, since they're not fully developed humans, I think there are some content that you're better off not being exposed to until some age.
Most challenged books feature issues faced within marginalized communities.
People are sort of threatened by those identities. They are threatened by anything that might take power away from them.
In response to conservative perspectives, one librarian at the Boston Public Library created a banned books blog breaking down and countering the reasons behind banned books.
I think there's more power in reading about controversial topics, and the more we know about book challenges and why these books are getting challenged only allows us to open our minds and to think more critically.
Amy recently wrote about a book featuring a trans child, which many families find controversial, but she explains that these topics are valuable for childhood development.
Again, the point is to learn from this and to experience something new and learn about ways that we feel about ourselves, because you don't want any one person to tell you how to think.
To stay updated on recent news involving book bans, you can go to Amy's blog at bplfunds.org/blogs. For WEBJ News, I'm Hannah Rose.
All stories are important, and the Boston community is doing what they can to make sure that these stories are available to all. Thank you so much for watching this WEBJ News special, Forbidden Chapters. I'm Gabriella Celona, and keep reading.